Build the System, See Your Future Grow Effortlessly. Written by Kelvin W. Nathan. Published by Audiobooks Office. Introduction. We are taught to dream big, hustle hard, and chase the future with relentless ambition. But here's the truth most people miss. A dream without a system is just chaos wearing a nice suit. The people who build extraordinary lives, wealthy lives, meaningful lives, don't get there by working harder. They get there by working on the right things in the right order inside the right system. This book is about that system. We've been sold a lie. Culture glorifies the grind. It worships overnight success and glorifies those who never sleep. But the real winners aren't grinding. They're designing. While others react to life, they respond through systems they've intentionally built. Their results aren't magic, they're mechanical. It's not luck, it's structure. It's not hustle, it's alignment. If you want an abundant future, financially, creatively, spiritually, it won't come by accident. It must be engineered. You don't manifest success, you construct it. And you start by building the systems that make it inevitable. Systems aren't cold or rigid. They are containers for your energy, pathways for your purpose, and frameworks that protect you from burnout. They give your life repeatable momentum, so your future doesn't rely on how you feel tomorrow morning. They create freedom, not restriction. When your systems run, your mind is free to focus on what truly matters: vision, impact, relationships, creativity, peace. This book is your blueprint, not a motivational boost or temporary fix, a true framework to design systems that match your mission, automate your growth, and help you build a life where abundance is no longer a pursuit. It's the baseline. We'll start at the roots, how to design a system that reflects your identity and values, not someone else's blueprint. From there, we'll explore how to automate the mundane, organize your mind, build consistent habits, measure what matters, and scale your results in a way that aligns with who you want to become, not just what you want to have. The goal is not just productivity. It's clarity, it's self-trust, it's freedom from chaos. You will be challenged, not to do more, but to build better. To stop throwing energy at scattered goals and start investing in structure, because once your system is in place, your future is no longer uncertain. It's inevitable. Some will try to skip the system. They'll chase the shortcut, the hack, the one-time breakthrough, and they'll stay stuck. This book isn't for them. It's for builders, quiet revolutionaries who know that the real power is not in a big win, but in designing a machine that wins daily. You don't need more motivation, you need a system that doesn't rely on it. You don't need more goals. You need a structure that makes results automatic. You don't need to predict the future, you need to build it. So that's where we begin. Build the system, then build your future. For more information about the ebook version of this audio, check the video description or visit audiobooksoffice.com. Chapter 1. Abundance begins with architecture. Every skyscraper begins the same way, not with steel or glass, but with a blueprint, a carefully drawn, deeply intentional plan that shapes the entire structure before a single beam is laid. Without it, the building collapses under its own ambition. The same is true of your life. If you're chasing abundance, chasing purpose, chasing a future you haven't yet lived, you must begin with architecture, not the architecture of buildings, but the architecture of your thoughts, systems, and inner alignment. Most people build their lives backwards. They chase outcomes, money, status, influence, and then scramble to create routines or habits to hold it all together. But abundance doesn't come to those who chase outcomes. It comes to those who design ecosystems. An ecosystem where every part of your life is rooted in intentional design, where your time, energy, focus, and resources are working in harmony, not friction. Your current life is already a system. Whether you know it or not, you're living inside a set of routines, beliefs, and defaults that are producing your daily experience. If you don't like your results, it's not because you're broken. It's because your system is producing exactly what it was built to produce. A chaotic schedule, inconsistent energy, unfinished goals. None of these are character flaws. They're system flaws, and system flaws can be redesigned. This chapter is about that redesign. It begins with awareness, noticing where your current architecture is leaking time, wasting energy, or working against the vision you claim to have. Then it moves into intentionality, choosing new structures to support who you're becoming, not who you've been. Abundance is not something you find, it's something you align with. That alignment begins by asking the right questions. What kind of life do I want to wake up to daily? What kind of emotional state do I want to sustain? What kind of work brings me alive? And what kind of routines drain me? If your architecture doesn't answer these questions, you're not building, you're improvising. Improvisation works in jazz, but not in building a life. You can't freestyle your way to long-term success. You have to pause, zoom out, and see the whole structure. What supports your energy? What protects your focus? What rhythms allow you to grow without collapsing? You need rituals that are repeatable, frameworks that are flexible, and systems that don't fall apart when life gets messy. That's the quiet genius of a well-designed system. It holds you up when motivation fails. It gives structure to creativity. It lets you show up as your highest self without having to fight your lowest habits every morning. You don't have to win the battle of willpower if the system is built right. It carries you through the friction. In a scarcity mindset, people try to control everything manually. They hold on tight, micromanage their lives, and exhaust themselves in the process. But an abundance mindset doesn't seek control. It seeks structure. Not rigid, suffocating structure, but intentional design, a framework that frees up space for what matters. In abundance, you don't need to hustle harder. You need to architect smarter. Think of your life like a garden. The seeds you plant, your intentions, values, ideas, only flourish if the environment supports them. You can't force a harvest, but you can build a system where growth becomes natural. Sunlight, water, healthy soil. That's your time, your energy, your environment, and the architecture of your life determines whether your garden thrives or withers. This is not just theory, it's deeply practical. You can start by mapping the architecture you already live in. Look at your mornings. Are they designed or chaotic? Look at how you handle money, reactively or strategically. Look at your workspace, your digital life, your calendar. Each of these is a structural component of your system. Each one can be redesigned with intention, not to be perfect, but to be aligned. The myth is that you need to overhaul everything at once, but system builders know the truth. Small hinges swing big doors. One changed routine can cascade into dozens of improved results. One restructured environment can unlock creative energy you didn't know you had. One boundary can reclaim hours of your week. This is how systems work. They stack, they scale, they liberate. Start with one corner of your architecture. Clean it, refine it, systemize it. Maybe it's your digital clutter. Maybe it's your morning routine. Maybe it's how you manage incoming tasks. Don't aim for complexity. Aim for consistency. Build a microsystem that works every day, then another, then another. Before long, you're not just doing better, you're becoming someone different. Someone who doesn't live in chaos. Someone who builds their future, piece by piece. You are the architect of your life, whether you own that role or not. You can build on accident or on purpose. You can keep reacting to fires, or you can build a system that prevents them. The abundant life isn't found in endless striving. It's found in intentional design. The architecture you build today will shape the life you live tomorrow. So start now. Design with clarity, build with courage, create a system that supports the weight of your dreams. In the next chapter, we'll begin dismantling one of the greatest myths of modern life, the idea that hustle is the only path to success. You'll learn how rhythm, not grind, is the real engine of sustainable abundance, because once the architecture is clear, the next step is to make it livable, energizing, and human. Your system starts here, and it starts with design. Chapter 2: The Myth of Hustle and the Power of Rhythm. We've been conditioned to believe that the only way to succeed is to hustle relentlessly, to wake before the sun, to outwork, outpace, and outgrind everyone else. Social media celebrates this image of the relentless doer, the person who never stops, who sacrifices sleep, relationships, and sanity in pursuit of their goals. But behind the glamorized hustle is a deeper truth: burnout, inconsistency, and often regret. The abundance mindset doesn't reject hard work, but it redefines its context. It doesn't worship constant motion, it values consistent rhythm. Not all effort is equal. There's a massive difference between activity and effectiveness, between movement and momentum. Rhythm is what converts energy into results without collapse. The hustle myth is seductive because it gives a quick sense of control. It tells you that if you just try harder, push more, sleep less, you'll get there faster. And maybe you will, temporarily. But hustle is a fuel that burns dirty. It creates temporary surges followed by long slumps. It relies on emotional spikes, adrenaline, and caffeine to cover for the absence of sustainable systems. Rhythm, on the other hand, is clean fuel. It respects the cycles of energy, creativity, and recovery. Rhythm asks, how do I build something that works even when I'm not at my best? Hustle never asks that question. It assumes you'll always be on, always pushing, always available. But you are not a machine, and you were never meant to be. Even machines need maintenance. Even software needs updates. You need space to rest, to reflect, to recharge, not just so you can do more, but so you can do better. Rhythm isn't lazy, it's strategic. It's the pattern of output that lets you keep creating value without sacrificing your health, your relationships, or your peace. True abundance can't exist without rhythm, because abundance is a long game, and long games are won with systems, not sprints. People resist rhythm because it feels slower at first. Hustle gives the illusion of speed, but rhythm gives you something hustle never can: sustainability. It allows you to build consistency, and consistency compounds. A person who works with rhythm and structure over a year will outperform someone who hustles in bursts every time. Because what matters in building a future isn't how fast you can move in a week, but how reliably you can build over time. Rhythm allows for compound progress. Hustle relies on heroic effort. Look at any elite performer, an athlete, a musician, a successful entrepreneur. They don't rely on blind hustle. They train in rhythm, they rest in rhythm. They operate with a structured flow that maximizes their performance across time, not just in a moment. They have seasons of growth, seasons of refinement, and seasons of pause. There's wisdom in their cadence. It's not just about pushing. It's about pacing. So how do you begin to shift from hustle to rhythm? First, by being honest about the cost of hustle. Are you sacrificing long-term clarity for short-term intensity? Are you constantly tired but proud of it? Are you checking off boxes without feeling a deeper sense of progress? Then, look at your calendar. Is it built around your natural energy patterns or someone else's expectations? Start there. Begin tracking, not just what you do, but how it feels. Are you working when you're sharpest? Are you resting when you're depleted? If not, your system is working against you, not for you. Rhythm starts by aligning your energy with your priorities. You don't need to work 8 hours a day to make progress. You need 2 to 3 focused hours where your brain and body are in sync, supported by systems that remove friction. That's the quiet magic of rhythm. It multiplies your effort by removing the noise around it. It simplifies, it refines, it allows for rest without guilt and action without panic. The transition from hustle to rhythm often requires unlearning. Many people are addicted to being busy because it makes them feel worthy. It gives them an identity. But being busy and being effective are not the same. An abundance mindset doesn't attach your value to your activity. It knows that your power lies in what you build, not just in what you do. And what you build lasts longer when it's constructed in rhythm. When you adopt rhythm, something remarkable happens. You become more present. Hustle scatters your mind. Rhythm anchors it. With rhythm, you begin to anticipate your energy highs and lows. You schedule deep work when your mind is fresh. You plan your breaks intentionally. You stop apologizing for rest because you understand that rest is part of the system. You begin to feel in control, not because you're doing everything, but because you're doing the right things at the right time in the right sequence. This isn't about doing less, it's about doing smarter. Rhythm doesn't mean you sit back and let life drift by. It means you design a tempo that lets your creativity thrive, your health stabilize, and your mind stay clear. It means you build boundaries around your energy and protect your focus like a sacred asset. Because that's what it is. Your energy is your most valuable currency, and rhythm is the budget that keeps you from going bankrupt. As you build your system, embed rhythm into its core. Don't just plan what you'll do, plan when you'll do it and how you'll recover afterward. Create a cadence you can sustain. Think in cycles. Design your week to include momentum and maintenance, action and reflection. Make rhythm part of your identity, not just your schedule. Because in the end, hustle might get you noticed, but rhythm will get you free. And freedom is what abundance really means. Freedom to choose, to create, to enjoy the process without burning out in the pursuit. Rhythm is how you protect that freedom. It's how you ensure that what you build doesn't collapse under its own weight. In the next chapter, we'll begin the blueprint process by exploring clarity, because you can't build a system for a future you haven't clearly defined. We'll get precise about what you want, why it matters, and how to reverse engineer a structure that brings that vision to life. Before you build the machine, you must define the mission, and that mission starts by getting clear. Chapter 3. Define it so you can build it. You can't build a future you haven't defined. That's the truth most people avoid because definition requires clarity, and clarity requires slowing down. It requires choosing what matters over what's popular, what's personal over what's prescribed. Too many people chase goals that aren't theirs. Career paths chosen for status, lifestyles copied from screens, dreams borrowed from someone louder. But building a system that actually works, a system that supports your vision of abundance, begins by getting radically clear about what you want and why it matters. This is not about setting arbitrary goals. It's about defining the life you're actually trying to live. Clarity is the first act of power. Without it, even the best systems collapse under confusion. You can create perfect schedules, install clever tools, and read every productivity book on the planet, but if your destination is vague, your progress will always feel hollow. You'll work hard and feel unsatisfied. You'll check boxes but remain directionless. It's not because you're lazy or broken. It's because the foundation is undefined. Systems don't run on noise, they run on purpose. Purpose, however, is often misunderstood. People think it's a grand revelation, a single moment of divine insight. In reality, purpose is the result of attention. It comes from paying close attention to what energizes you, to what you return to even after failure, to what you think about when no one is telling you what to do. Purpose doesn't shout, it whispers, and to hear it, you must be willing to listen. This is where real system building begins, not with apps, not with planners, but with a brutally honest conversation with yourself. What kind of life do you want to live in specific terms? What does abundance mean to you? Is it creative freedom? Is it time with your family? Is it the ability to work without financial anxiety? Until you define it, you can't measure progress. You can't optimize your days. You can't build a system for a life you haven't imagined with clarity. Definition isn't about locking yourself into a rigid identity, it's about giving your life structure so your energy can flow in a meaningful direction. Clarity doesn't limit you, it liberates you. It gives you the freedom to say no to distractions because you finally have a standard to measure opportunities against. Without clarity, everything feels urgent. With clarity, you can prioritize with confidence. You can say no to what doesn't align, not out of fear, but from strength. The practical step here is to articulate your vision, not in vague motivational terms, but in real language that describes your desired life in texture and tone. What does a great day look like for you? What kind of work are you doing? What kind of people are you surrounded by? What's your energy like? Where do you live? What problems are you solving? This isn't fantasy, it's design work, and if you're not willing to do this part, every system you try to build will feel hollow, misaligned, or forced. Too many people resist clarity because it requires commitment. If you define what you want, you also expose the gap between where you are and where you wish to be. That gap can feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is part of building. It's the tension that stretches you into new capacity. Embrace it. Let clarity show you the work that matters. Let it illuminate what no longer deserves your attention. It's the real function of vision, to direct your energy toward what's meaningful and away from what's simply available. Once your definition is clear, everything changes. Decision-making becomes faster. Distractions lose their grip. Your schedule begins to take shape around what matters most. You stop chasing 10 things and begin building one thing well. The people who make the deepest impact in the world aren't the ones who try to do everything. They're the ones who define their mission with such clarity that they can organize their lives around it. Their systems follow their vision, not the other way around. So define your vision, then anchor it in your daily structure. That might mean adjusting how you begin your mornings, how you schedule your week, or how you track your progress. It might mean letting go of obligations that don't serve your future. It might mean redesigning your work environment to support focus, or carving out non-negotiable time for rest. The specifics will vary, but the principle is universal. Definition creates alignment, and alignment allows systems to function with less resistance. This is how people move from scattered ambition to focused momentum. They stop trying to manage everything and start managing what matters. They don't eliminate effort, they channel it. That's what a clear definition of success provides. It's a compass, and in a world of endless options, the compass is more valuable than the map. You don't need to define your entire life in one sitting. Start with the next chapter of life you want to create. Be specific. Define the outcomes, but also define the experience. Don't just say you want to make more money. Say you want to make more money doing work that excites you and leaves you energized. Don't just say you want freedom. Say you want a schedule that allows for creative flow, deep rest, and time with people you love. The more texture you give your vision, the easier it becomes to reverse engineer a system to support it. And yes, your definition will evolve. That's natural. But the clearer you are now, the better your system will serve you in the present. Don't wait for perfect clarity. Start with honest clarity. Build from where you are. Let your system grow with you. In the next chapter, we'll shift from defining the destination to transforming the driver, you, because identity is the first system you live inside. Before you change your habits, workflows, or schedules, you must examine the internal story driving all of it. A system built on a fractured identity will always short-circuit. So, before we automate anything, we go inward. That's where the real work begins. Chapter 4. Identity is the first system. Every action you take, every habit you repeat, every goal you pursue is a reflection of one thing: your identity. The story you believe about yourself becomes the foundation of the systems you build, the behaviors you adopt, and the future you expect. If your internal narrative is fragmented, self-sabotaging, or borrowed from someone else's expectations, then even the most well-designed external system will fail to produce sustainable growth. Identity is not just personal philosophy. It is the operating system that determines what kind of future you are able to sustain. We often try to build our lives by focusing on external results. We chase new routines, new tools, new strategies, hoping they'll finally create the breakthrough. But the truth is that no system can consistently outperform the identity it's built upon. If deep down you believe you're disorganized, unworthy, incapable, or doomed to fail, then those beliefs will sabotage every structure you try to install. You'll skip steps, abandon consistency, or subconsciously sabotage your progress because the system is incompatible with who you think you are. The real shift comes when you stop trying to change your outcomes and start changing the story you tell yourself. That story is your identity, and it's not fixed. It's not fate. It's programmable. Every experience, every challenge, every choice has contributed to your current self-perception. But just as it was shaped, it can be reshaped. Identity is not a label you were born with. It's a construct you maintain, and therefore it's a construct you maintain. And therefore, it's a construct you maintain. To build a system that leads to the future you want, you must first become the kind of person who can live inside that future. That doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means intentionally shifting the story about who you are and what you are capable of, then reinforcing that story through aligned action. Identity doesn't change through hope. It changes through evidence. The more you act in alignment with the version of yourself you are becoming, the more that version becomes real. This is not fake it until you make it. This is behave it until you believe it. You don't need to trick yourself. You need to give yourself proof. Every time you show up with discipline, every time you speak from truth, every time you honor a commitment, you reinforce the identity of someone who builds systems that work. The more often you align your actions with the future you want to build, the more naturally those actions become your default. Over time, the new identity stabilizes, and with it, the system that supports your future becomes easier to maintain. That's why internal alignment is more powerful than willpower. If you're constantly fighting against yourself, pushing through resistance created by a misaligned identity, you'll burn out. But when your self-concept matches your goals, friction drops. Consistency becomes natural. The system supports itself because it's operating in harmony with your belief about who you are. Changing identity doesn't require a dramatic reinvention. It requires intentional, consistent upgrades. Begin by noticing the limiting stories you've accepted. Maybe you think you're someone who can't follow through, who's always behind, who's not the type to be successful. These beliefs often show up subtly, in self-deprecating humor, in procrastination, in avoidance of new opportunities. But they are not facts. They are narratives. And every narrative can be rewritten. To rewrite identity, start with clarity. Define the version of you who would thrive inside the life you're trying to build. How does that person think, speak, decide, and behave? What kind of routines support that identity? What kind of people does that version of you surround themselves with? Once you have that picture, start aligning your daily behaviors with it, not perfectly, but consistently. Every aligned action is a brick in the foundation of your new system. This process is not instant. It takes repetition and grace. You will slip into old patterns. That's part of growth. The goal isn't perfection, it's reinforcement. The more consistently you act as the version of yourself who builds and sustains a better system, the more your brain begins to accept that identity as normal. And when identity shifts, systems become easier to build and sustain. You no longer have to force habits. You live them. This internal work matters more than any productivity tactic, because the person you believe yourself to be determines what you permit yourself to do. If you believe you're someone who always quits, you won't trust yourself to commit to anything that requires endurance. If you believe you're scattered, you'll stop trying to organize your time. If you believe you're unlucky, you'll dismiss every opportunity as temporary or undeserved. Think these are not just thoughts, they're permissions or restrictions. That's why so many people sabotage their own systems. It's not that they're undisciplined, it's that the system conflicts with their internal permissions. They haven't updated the identity to match the process. And when identity and process clash, identity always wins. Your subconscious will find ways to pull you back into the version of yourself that feels safe and familiar, even if it's dysfunctional. So the work is to make the better version feel familiar. The work is to normalize growth, to make excellence expected, to raise your internal baseline. That means speaking to yourself differently. It means catching the moments when you diminish your own potential in casual conversation or private thoughts. It means defending your future from the voice of your past. It means replacing the identity of survival with one of creation, one of strength, one of vision. And it means living in a way that gives that identity daily reinforcement. Eventually, this becomes natural. You no longer need to consciously remind yourself who you're becoming because your actions have made it undeniable. You look around and see the evidence. A calendar that reflects your priorities, work that aligns with your strengths, relationships that uplift rather than drain, energy that flows rather than spikes and crashes. That's when you know the system is taking root, not because it's perfect, but because it feels like a natural extension of who you are. This is the work beneath the work, the hidden engine behind every sustainable system. You can't fake it, you can't skip it. But if you commit to it, every other part of your system becomes easier to install. Identity sets the tone. It shapes your behavior, your habits, your boundaries, your goals, and your response to setbacks. When your identity supports your system, you stop pushing uphill. You begin to move with purpose, in rhythm, aligned from the inside out. In the next chapter, we'll move from identity to execution, where theory meets practice. You'll learn why systems, not motivation, are the key to consistent progress, and how to build a daily process that runs with or without inspiration. Because once the identity is aligned, the next step is building a machine that doesn't need to be rebooted every morning. Chapter 5. Systems Eat Motivation for Breakfast. Motivation is overrated. That may sound strange in a world obsessed with motivation quotes, hype videos, and high-energy morning routines, but the truth is simple. Motivation is inconsistent. It fades, it fluctuates, it shows up late and leaves early. If your life or business depends on whether or not you feel like doing the work, you're in trouble. The people who build lasting results, the kind that compound over time and lead to true freedom, do not rely on motivation, they rely on systems, because systems don't ask how you feel, they just work. The biggest trap most people fall into is waiting for the right feeling before taking the right action. They think they need to be inspired, fully energized, and emotionally aligned before they do the work that matters. But high performers understand that feelings follow actions, not the other way around. They understand that when the right system is in place, action becomes automatic. It becomes a default, not a decision. And that shift from decision to default is where consistency is born. Every day you wake up and debate with yourself about what to do next is a day you lose energy to decision fatigue. It's a day you spend negotiating with your lower self, postponing progress, or overanalyzing what should already be structured. Systems eliminate that negotiation. They turn important behaviors into routines, routines into rhythms, and rhythms into results. They are the quiet force behind every extraordinary outcome. And yet, most people ignore them because they're not sexy. Systems don't make headlines, they don't deliver dopamine like big wins or motivational breakthroughs, but they are what actually build the life you want. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wait until you're inspired to do it. You do it because it's embedded into your system of hygiene. It's a non-negotiable. Now, imagine if your fitness, your creative output, your learning, or your financial habits were treated the same way. Automatic, consistent, built into your day without debate. That's what systems make possible. They remove the emotional resistance and replace it with clarity and flow. The key to building systems that outlast motivation is simplicity. The more complicated a process is, the more friction it creates, and friction is the enemy of consistency. A good system is easy to start, easy to repeat, and hard to forget. It should be so natural to your environment and routine that skipping it feels uncomfortable. It should reduce the number of choices you have to make, not increase them. That's what makes it sustainable. Start by identifying the tasks you want to do consistently. Then ask yourself, how can I make this so simple, so obvious that doing it becomes easier than not doing it? If you want to write every day, don't set a goal of writing a chapter. Set a goal of opening your document and writing a paragraph. If you want to work out, don't commit to 90 minutes. Commit to showing up and doing 5 minutes. Most days you'll do more. But the power of the system is that it gets you started. And once you start, momentum does the rest. That's the real difference between amateurs and professionals. Amateurs wait for motivation. Professionals rely on systems. The writer who publishes consistently doesn't always feel inspired. They just sit down and write anyway. The entrepreneur who ships product after product isn't always confident. They just follow their process. The athlete who trains through fatigue doesn't love it every day, but the system is already in place. It carries them through the low-energy moments. It creates results while others are still trying to get in the mood. Another truth about motivation is that it can't be trusted. It's shaped by mood, sleep, food, conversations, weather, and 1,000 other unpredictable factors. Basing your goals on motivation is like building a house on sand. Systems, on the other hand, are solid ground. They are stable, dependable, and measurable. They let you track your progress and make adjustments based on data, not just feelings. When something isn't working, you don't blame yourself, you diagnose the system. That's the power of having one. The most successful people aren't the most passionate or the most talented. They are the ones who remove friction from their process. They are the ones who create environments where the right actions happen naturally. They know that structure creates freedom. By automating the basics, they create space for higher-level thinking, deeper creativity, and better decision-making. They build systems that protect their energy for what truly matters. Designing a system isn't about micromanaging your life. It's about creating flow. It's about knowing what happens after the alarm goes off, where your energy should go in the first 2 hours of your day, how you handle distractions, how you reset after setbacks, and what triggers your best work. It's about defining those things with intention, testing them, and then letting the system run so you don't have to constantly reinvent your day. One of the greatest advantages of having a reliable system is that it helps you stay on track, even when life gets unpredictable. Because there will be days when you're tired, when circumstances shift, when plans fall apart. A system provides a safety net. It keeps your baseline performance higher than most people's best efforts. It's the difference between falling completely off track and simply adjusting the rhythm. This doesn't mean your system has to be rigid. In fact, the best systems are flexible. They adapt to seasons of life, energy levels, and evolving goals. But the structure stays, the process remains, the rhythm adjusts without breaking. That's the balance you're aiming for. Discipline without burnout, flow without chaos, automation without detachment. A system that runs in the background, quietly delivering results. If you've struggled with inconsistency, don't look at your willpower, look at your structure. If you keep starting and stopping, it's not because you lack discipline, it's because you haven't made success easy enough to repeat. You haven't built a system that serves you. But you can. You can design your days, your workflow, your environment to support the person you're becoming. You can replace fragile motivation with strong systems. Once that happens, you'll no longer dread doing the work. You'll no longer burn out trying to force results. You'll start showing up from a place of clarity and intention, knowing that your process is taking you somewhere meaningful, even if today doesn't feel perfect. And ironically, that's when motivation shows up more often, not because you need it, but because your system makes space for it. It becomes a bonus, not a requirement. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into one of the most overlooked systems in modern life: your time. You'll learn how to stop managing time like a resource and start designing it like a structure. Because time is not something you spend, it's something you shape, and your future depends on how well you shape it. Chapter 6. Time is a system, not a resource. We've all heard the phrase, time is money, but that comparison undersells its value. Money can be earned, saved, and replaced. Time cannot. Once it's gone forever. And yet, most people treat time carelessly, reacting to it rather than designing it. The deeper truth is this: time isn't just a resource, it's a system, and until you treat it like one, until you learn to shape, structure, and defend it, your future will remain vulnerable to distraction, interruption, and exhaustion. Most people don't lose time all at once, they lose it in fragments. 10 minutes scrolling here, 15 minutes reacting to a message there, entire afternoons pulled into someone else's emergency. The day slips away in small, unnoticeable losses that compound over time. What begins as harmless distraction slowly becomes a lifestyle of disorganization and regret. And it's not because they lack discipline, it's because they've never been taught to architect time like the system it is. A well-designed time system doesn't start with a to-do list, it starts with intention. What are you building? What kind of life do you want this day, this week, this season to support? Time design begins when you stop asking, what do I have to do today, and start asking, what matters most today? From there, you can reverse engineer the hours you have into meaningful containers of focused energy. Every block of time becomes a tool, not just a placeholder, and your day begins to serve your purpose rather than your inbox. Most people think of their calendar as a place to store appointments, but high performers see it differently. They use their calendar as a design canvas. Every color, block, and label is a reflection of their priorities. They don't fill time for the sake of looking busy. They shape it so that the most valuable work happens when their energy is highest. They carve out protected space for deep work, strategic thinking, and recovery. And when interruptions arise, they're handled by system, not panic. The shift from time management to time design requires awareness. It means noticing when your time is being stolen by things that don't align with your goals. It means recognizing that not all hours are created equal. An hour of distracted multitasking is not the same as an hour of deep, uninterrupted focus. One produces motion, the other produces momentum. Time design means honoring those distinctions and building a daily rhythm that reflects them. It also means building buffer zones into your day. One of the most common mistakes people make is scheduling themselves too tightly. They try to optimize every minute and leave no room for the unexpected. But life doesn't work like that. A good time system includes margin. It leaves space for transition, reflection, and recovery. It doesn't punish you for being human. It supports you through inevitable fluctuations in energy and focus. Another overlooked element of time as a system is energy mapping. You don't have the same level of focus at all hours of the day. Your brain has natural peaks and dips. If you design your schedule without accounting for this, you end up doing your hardest work when you're mentally drained and wasting your sharpest hours on shallow tasks. The most effective systems assign high-value work to high-energy windows. They align the task to the time, not the other way around. You don't need to become a robot. You just need to stop trusting your future to randomness. A scattered, unstructured approach to time guarantees missed potential. But a systemized approach, one that respects your energy and your values, produces exponential returns. Not because you're doing more, but because you're doing the right things at the right time, consistently. Building a time system isn't about micromanaging every hour. It's about defining the recurring structure that makes your best work possible. It might be as simple as creating a daily anchor, an hour in the morning where your phone is off and your most important project gets attention before anything else, or it might be a weekly review ritual where you reset your calendar, reflect on what's working, and refine your priorities. These aren't tasks. They are time rituals, small, consistent actions that protect your attention and move your life forward. The hardest part of designing time is learning to say no. You cannot build anything great if your time is constantly being hijacked by things that don't matter. Every yes is a no to something else, and if you haven't defined what you're saying yes to, your mission, your vision, your priorities, then your calendar will become a reflection of other people's agendas, not your own. You must become fiercely protective of your time, not to isolate yourself, but to preserve the space where your future is being built. One powerful technique is time blocking, not just for meetings, but for everything that matters: creative work, strategic thinking, skill development, even rest. By assigning specific time slots to high-priority activities, you remove ambiguity, you create boundaries around your energy, you stop drifting from task to task and start moving with intentional rhythm. It's not about rigidity, it's about clarity. When you see your day in blocks, you're more likely to stay on track and less likely to waste the in-between moments. But even the best time systems will fail without review. Your relationship with time is dynamic, your energy levels will shift, your responsibilities will evolve. That's why regular reflection is part of any good time system. Weekly or monthly, step back and ask, is my time being spent in alignment with my values? Are my highest priorities getting the focus they deserve? What needs to be adjusted to better support my goals? This simple habit of review ensures your system stays alive, responsive, and supportive. The truth is, time is not something you find, it's something you shape. And the way you shape it determines the trajectory of your life. If you're constantly reacting, constantly putting out fires, constantly racing the clock, it's not because you're too busy. It's because your time system is broken or non-existent. But you can fix it. You can create a structure where the right things happen more often than not, where your focus isn't pulled in a dozen directions, and where your life actually feels like it's moving forward instead of just spinning in place. Time is not a passive container you fill, it's an active system you design, and like any system, it either supports your vision or it sabotages it. The choice is yours. In the next chapter, we'll look deeper into the input side of your system, what you allow into your mind, your space, and your attention. Because output doesn't just come from effort, it comes from managing the quality of your inputs, and if you don't control them, they will control you. Chapter 7. The Input Equation. What you produce in life, your thoughts, your energy, your work, your results, is shaped not only by your effort, but by what you allow in. Inputs determine outputs. What you consume shapes what you create. The people you interact with, the content you absorb, the environments you operate in, the conversations you entertain, these all act as invisible forces directing your mind and emotions. Most people give little thought to the input equation. They believe if they just try harder, push more, or organize better, they'll get better results. But effort alone can't compensate for low-quality inputs. If you're feeding your system chaos, distraction, or negativity, your outcomes will always reflect that. In an abundance-based system, inputs are not background noise. They are design features. They are chosen, filtered, and managed with care. The people who create consistently excellent results aren't just more focused, they're more selective. They are intentional about what gets access to their mind. They understand that attention is not just a limited resource, it's a sacred one, and allowing random or toxic inputs into that space is a violation of the system they've built to protect their clarity and momentum. We live in a world engineered to hijack our attention. Algorithms are trained to exploit emotion, media is designed to provoke outrage, and social feeds are endless loops of comparison and noise. If you consume all of it without discipline, you're not just wasting time, you're warping your perspective. You're feeding your brain a steady diet of fear, urgency, and judgment. Over time, this input rewires how you think, how you feel, and what you believe is possible. And if you're not careful, you'll start making decisions based on noise instead of vision. The first step in mastering the input equation is awareness. Begin to notice how you feel after consuming something. After spending time with certain people, do you feel drained or inspired? After scrolling through news or social media, are you more focused or more scattered? After binging information, do you take more action or less? Not all input is bad, but unfiltered input is dangerous. You must become the gatekeeper of your system, not to block the world out, but to filter it through intention. A high-performance system doesn't avoid input, it curates it. It selects books, conversations, mentors, environments, and routines that elevate thought, expand creativity, and support the long game. It understands that ideas need space to grow, and that space is easily crowded by the constant influx of unimportant noise. That's why periods of silence, solitude, or digital fasting are not signs of disconnection. They're systems of protection. They allow your mind to reset, to hear itself think, to process without interruption. This isn't about perfection. You will never eliminate all low-quality input, but you can minimize its presence and neutralize its influence. You can build buffers, blocks of protected time without screens, days without social media, boundaries around your work environment. You can use noise-canceling habits, reading instead of scrolling, long walks without headphones, journaling before checking email. These small shifts create large returns in focus, clarity, and creativity. They reduce the cognitive junk that slows your system down. Inputs aren't just digital. They include the people you surround yourself with. Human energy is contagious. Spend enough time around pessimistic, reactive, or distracted people and you will find yourself absorbing their frequency, mimicking their language, echoing their limitations. If you're serious about building a system that supports growth, you must audit your relationships. That doesn't mean cutting people off impulsively. It means recognizing the influence each relationship has on your state of mind and adjusting your exposure accordingly. Who you let close is part of your input equation. The same goes for physical environment. Your surroundings communicate constantly with your subconscious. A cluttered space whispers confusion. A noisy room breeds distraction. A chaotic desk leads to fragmented thinking. Your environment should reflect the system you're building. Design it with care. Make it clean, focused, aligned. Remove the friction that slows you down. Digital clutter, unnecessary notifications, disorganized files. Every part of your physical and digital space should signal intention, not perfection, just purpose. Once you become aware of the input equation, you begin to realize that your best ideas, your clearest thoughts, your deepest work don't happen by accident. They happen when the mind has space and structure. That structure is maintained by controlling what gets in. If your system is constantly overwhelmed by input, it won't have the capacity for output. Your energy will be spent processing noise instead of creating results. There is a myth that more information equals more intelligence. But in a distracted world, the truly intelligent are not those who know everything. They are those who know what to ignore. Discernment is the real superpower. Being able to say, "This doesn't deserve my attention right now," is an act of strength. It's how you keep your system clear. It's how you stay connected to your mission instead of being dragged into every conversation, trend, or crisis. Some of the most successful creators, leaders, and builders have strict input disciplines. They read selectively, consume less news, minimize screen time, and create before they consume. They understand that the best work comes from a clear signal, not a crowded frequency. They know that just because information is available doesn't mean it's valuable. They filter everything through the lens of, does this help me build? If the answer is no, it's set aside. As you refine your system, build intentional input rituals. Create a morning routine that nourishes your mind before the world demands your attention. Choose a few high-quality sources of inspiration or knowledge and ignore the rest. Surround yourself with voices that elevate your standards. Make room for boredom. It often leads to breakthroughs. Protect the time you need to think deeply without interruption. Guard your mind like it's the engine of your future. because it is. When your inputs are intentional, your energy becomes more consistent. Your thoughts become clearer, your emotional stability increases. You no longer feel pulled in a dozen directions. You start experiencing the quiet confidence of alignment. Your system begins to function not just with more output, but with better quality output. You're no longer reacting, you're responding from clarity. In the next chapter, we'll turn our focus to repeatability, specifically how to build systems that generate value daily without needing constant reinvention. Because once your inputs are clean, the next step is building processes that work over and over again, consistently, efficiently, and with compounding effect. Chapter 8. Build once, benefit daily. There is a quiet power in systems that require one act of creation and then serve you again and again. It is one of the most overlooked principles in modern life. Build once, benefit daily. Most people are stuck in a cycle of repetition without intention. They wake up, respond to the same problems, rebuild the same routines, relearn the same lessons. Their days are filled with effort, but their systems produce nothing that outlives the moment. Meanwhile, the people who compound results over time aren't necessarily working harder, they're building smarter. They are setting up processes, automations, habits, and workflows that create results long after the initial effort has been applied. This is the logic of leverage. You take an hour today to set up a process that saves you 10 hours this month. You spend energy once designing a habit that removes decision-making from your morning routine. You build a checklist that prevents repeated mistakes. You create a template for emails you send weekly. You document a process you can hand off instead of repeating endlessly. These are not exciting, flashy tasks. They are not Instagrammable. But they are the bedrock of a systemized, scalable life. To live in abundance, you must learn to shift from reacting to designing. Most people spend their entire lives reacting, fixing what breaks, solving what's urgent, repeating what they forgot to systemize. They are locked in daily maintenance mode. But the builder's mindset looks at every repeated problem and asks, how can I build something once so this never becomes a problem again? It's a different posture toward life. It sees inefficiency not as a nuisance, but as a signal, a sign that something needs to be built better. This principle applies to every area of life. In health, it might look like creating a weekly meal plan and grocery list that removes the need for daily decisions. In finances, it could be automating transfers, bill payments, and savings so that wealth grows quietly in the background. In work, it might be creating standard operating procedures so tasks can be delegated or done faster. In relationships, it can be as simple as scheduling recurring check-ins or date nights to ensure connection doesn't fall through the cracks. The opportunities for building once and benefiting daily are everywhere, but only if you're paying attention. This approach also builds momentum. When systems run in the background, your mental bandwidth is freed up for high-leverage thinking and deep creative work. You're no longer spending energy remembering what to do, when to do it, or how to do it. You've designed your environment and your routine so that good choices happen by default. That's when life begins to feel spacious, not because you're doing less, but because you're doing the right things in the right way. It's important to understand that not every system has to be digital or complex. The simplest systems are often the most powerful. A checklist for your morning routine is a system. A one-sentence rule for evaluating opportunities is a system. A nightly ritual that resets your focus is a system. These systems don't need to be elaborate, they need to be effective. They need to reduce friction, protect energy, and create consistency. The trap many people fall into is chasing novelty over stability. They want to try every new tool, every new technique, always searching for the next big breakthrough. But abundance doesn't come from chasing novelty. It comes from mastering the fundamentals, from building simple systems that deliver value over and over again. You don't need 20 productivity hacks. You need 3 systems that work every day. That's how real freedom is created. not by doing more, but by doing the same things more effectively and letting the results accumulate. The first step is observation. Track what you do repeatedly. Where are your patterns of effort? What decisions are you making over and over? What tasks eat your time every week? Every one of those is a candidate for a system. Create templates, automate reminders, batch similar tasks, set up recurring calendar events. Build infrastructure around your energy. The more you systemize, the less you waste. Building once to benefit daily also demands patience. Most people resist systems because they take time to create. It's faster to do something manually, they say. And yes, today it might be. But if you're going to do it more than twice, the system will always pay off. This is the long game. You are planting seeds, and once the systems are running, they return value without requiring the same level of input. That's the leverage that transforms a life. You begin to earn back your own time. This is also how you scale impact. You can't grow your influence, your business, your creativity, or your personal fulfillment without systems that multiply your effort. Without them, every new opportunity adds pressure. With them, opportunities are processed through an engine that turns ideas into action without additional stress. You can build more, create more, serve more, because your system is doing the heavy lifting. It also reduces emotional volatility. When your results don't depend on how you feel each day, you experience more stability. You stop living in feast or famine cycles of productivity. Your system shows up even when you don't feel like it. And the more you experience that consistency, the more confidence you build. You begin to trust yourself, not because you're motivated every day, but because your system is stronger than your mood swings. And when the system stops working, you don't panic, you diagnose, you improve. That's the difference between a system and a streak. A streak is fragile. One bad day and it's over. A system is resilient. It adapts, evolves, and resets. It doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. And that commitment to structure is what makes your future sustainable. At the heart of this approach is the understanding that your life is not meant to be rebuilt from scratch every morning. The decisions you make, the tools you use, the habits you install, these should serve you long after you've created them. They should build scaffolding for your growth, freeing your mind to focus on bigger questions. That's what it means to build once and benefit daily. You create something useful, and then you let it serve your future over and over again. In the next chapter, we'll turn our attention to the true nature of wealth, not just financial, but emotional, relational, and energetic. You'll see why abundance is not about accumulation, but alignment, and how your systems can begin to create prosperity in every area of life without requiring you to chase it. Because when your systems are right, wealth stops being a goal and starts becoming a byproduct. Chapter 9. Wealth is a byproduct of alignment. Wealth is often misunderstood. Most people define it in purely financial terms, measuring it by bank accounts, assets, or income. But wealth in its true form is multidimensional. It includes time, energy, relationships, peace of mind, and freedom of choice. The abundance mindset recognizes that wealth is not merely about what you accumulate, but about how well your life aligns with your values, your purpose, and your natural strengths. Real wealth is not created by chasing money. It is created by building a system that reflects your truth and allows prosperity to grow as a natural result of alignment. The mistake many make is believing that wealth must be pursued through sacrifice. They imagine a path where joy must be traded for productivity, rest for progress, health for income. But this kind of wealth is hollow. It comes at the cost of the very things that give life meaning. True abundance is different. It grows from a place where effort and identity are not in conflict. It emerges when your daily work supports your future without draining your present. That's what alignment looks like. It's the state where what you do, how you do it, and why you do it all point in the same direction. Alignment is not accidental, it must be designed. It begins by understanding who you are at your core, your values, your temperament, your vision, and designing systems that protect and express that identity. If your systems are built around external validation, social pressure, or outdated goals, they will produce stress and misalignment. You might achieve success by the world's standards, but you will feel empty because the structure you built doesn't serve your inner life. Wealth becomes a burden instead of a blessing. To build aligned systems, you must give yourself permission to define success on your own terms, not what you were taught, not what others expect, but what genuinely matters to you. That might mean earning less in exchange for more freedom. It might mean simplifying your lifestyle to gain more time. It might mean choosing impact over scale, depth over speed. When your systems reflect your own metrics for a rich life, wealth begins to flow with less resistance. You stop chasing and start receiving. You stop proving and start building. Wealth created through alignment feels different. It doesn't come with constant anxiety. It doesn't rely on force or manipulation. It comes through integrity. Your energy is clean, your work is meaningful, your relationships are not transactions, they are collaborations. You begin to notice opportunities that fit, rather than forcing yourself into places where you don't belong. This is one of the clearest signals of alignment. Things feel lighter, not because they are easy, but because they are right. This doesn't mean you won't work hard, but the hard work will feel different. It will feel like an investment, not a sacrifice. It will build you rather than break you. That's what aligned effort does. It strengthens your system instead of draining it, and over time, that kind of effort compounds. It produces results that are sustainable, joyful, and rooted in something deeper than ambition. The financial side of wealth begins to shift too. When you operate from alignment, you naturally create value. You do work that matters. You build trust. You solve real problems with authenticity, and in a world starving for real connection and clarity, that kind of presence becomes magnetic. You stop chasing clients, jobs, or promotions. They begin to find you, not because of flashy marketing or perfect credentials, but because your system radiates coherence. You become someone who can be trusted, someone whose output is consistent, someone whose presence carries weight. Money begins to show up not as a goal, but as a result. That's what it means when we say wealth is a byproduct of alignment. It's not that you ignore money. It's that you no longer place it at the center. You place value creation at the center. You place service at the center. You place integrity and systems at the center. And those foundations attract prosperity without constant strain. You build once, and it starts to give back to you over and over. This is true across every dimension of life. In relationships, alignment leads to emotional wealth, trust, intimacy, support, mutual growth. In health, it leads to energetic wealth, sustained vitality, resilience, a body that supports your mission. In time, it leads to freedom wealth, flexibility, space, choice. In purpose, it leads to spiritual wealth, clarity, fulfillment, peace. These forms of wealth cannot be bought, but they can be built, and they are all outcomes of systems that reflect who you really are. But alignment requires courage. It asks you to stop pretending, to stop saying yes to what you hate, to stop trying to win at games you don't care about. It requires that you listen to your dissatisfaction, not silence it, that you use your frustration as fuel to build something better. The longer you ignore misalignment, the more your system becomes self-sabotaging. You'll start to resent the very results you've worked for. That's the cost of building a system for the wrong life. To return to alignment, you must first pause, step back, audit your systems. Ask yourself the hard questions. Am I spending time on what actually matters to me, or just what's urgent? Am I building routines that reflect my values or someone else's expectations? Is my work feeding my soul or just my schedule? Am I saying yes because it's aligned or because I'm afraid to say no? These questions are not easy, but they are necessary. Because alignment doesn't come through luck, it comes through design. When you begin to realign even in small ways, the energy shift is immediate. You breathe easier. Your creativity returns. You begin to feel proud of the life you're building, not because it's flashy, but because it's yours. Every system starts working better because it's now serving a vision that's true. That's when wealth begins to take root, not as a destination, but as the natural result of living and building in integrity. In the next chapter, we'll look at your environment, not just the spaces you occupy, but how those spaces influence your energy, focus, and identity. Because even the best internal systems can be disrupted by external chaos, and the most powerful builders know that their surroundings are never neutral. They're either lifting you up or slowing you down, and it's time to design a space that works as hard as you do. Chapter 10. Your environment is part of the system. No matter how disciplined, motivated, or clear-minded you are, your environment will either reinforce or undermine everything you're trying to build. The surroundings you operate in, the spaces you live in, the people you regularly interact with, the sounds, the colors, the digital tools and clutter, all of it is sending subtle messages to your mind every single moment. The environment is never neutral. It's either supporting your system or sabotaging it. It's either pulling you into alignment or pulling you into distraction. This is why the most intentional people design their environment with the same level of care they use to design their calendar or their goals. Most people underestimate the influence of their surroundings because the effects are rarely loud or immediate. But over time, the environment shapes your habits, your energy levels, your focus, and even your identity. Walk into a cluttered room and your mind mirrors that chaos. Try to create meaningful work in a space filled with noise and disorder, and you'll find your thoughts scattered before you've even begun. Your environment is always speaking to your subconscious, telling you what kind of behavior is normal here. If your workspace says urgency and distraction, then that's what you'll experience. If your home communicates rest and clarity, then that becomes your default energy. Designing a supportive environment doesn't require money. It requires attention. It requires asking, what is this space helping me become? Is it designed for who I've been or who I'm becoming? Is it pulling me into my higher self or keeping me anchored to old patterns? You can change your environment by shifting small details. Remove the friction that keeps you from starting important tasks. Make your tools visible and your distractions invisible. Clean the clutter that's adding mental load you don't even notice. Turn your environment into an ally, not an obstacle. The principle of environment applies equally to digital space. The devices you use daily have the power to amplify your focus or destroy it. Your phone, your laptop, your notifications, your browser tabs, they form a kind of digital atmosphere that follows you wherever you go. If your screen is filled with alerts, badges, and open loops, your nervous system is in a constant state of microstress. You may not notice it consciously, but it fragments your thinking, reduces your patience, and trains your brain to expect interruption. To build systems that produce consistent output, you must treat your digital space with the same intentionality as your physical one. Start by decluttering your digital life. Unsubscribe from emails that add no value. Turn off non-essential notifications. Organize your files so you can find what you need without friction. Limit the number of tools you use and get better at using fewer ones more deeply. Close browser tabs. Use focus modes. Set rules around how and when you engage with digital content. Your devices should serve your goals, not dictate your attention. Your attention is the most precious resource you have, and the environment, both physical and digital, decides how much of it you can protect. Relationships are also part of your environment. Who you spend time with affects your standards, your energy, and your sense of possibility. If you surround yourself with people who are reactive, negative, or stuck in patterns of scarcity, you'll find yourself adapting to their rhythm. Not because you want to, but because that's what environments do. They shape behavior. On the other hand, proximity to people who are intentional, visionary, and grounded in action will elevate your thinking. Their systems will influence yours. Their energy will nudge you toward better decisions. This doesn't mean cutting everyone out of your life. It means becoming selective. It means protecting your system from the energy of those who aren't building anything of their own. Environmental design is not about control, it's about support. It's about removing unnecessary resistance and replacing it with subtle encouragement. A book placed where you see it daily is more likely to be read. A journal on your nightstand invites reflection. A well-lit, quiet space makes it easier to create. Each of these is a signal, a cue, a system component. You're not trying to force discipline. You're removing the need for it. You're shaping an ecosystem that makes the desired behavior the natural behavior. The deeper truth is that environment is not just about where you are, it's about what you tolerate. The mess you ignore, the distractions you let in, the boundaries you fail to set, these all become parts of your system. Left unchecked, they become the reasons your goals stall. But when you take responsibility for your environment, you reclaim a level of control that most people give away. You're no longer a victim of your surroundings, you become the architect. This shift also empowers your identity. When your environment reflects your values, it reinforces the story you are telling yourself about who you are becoming. A workspace that is clean, organized, and built for deep work doesn't just make you more productive, it makes you feel like someone who does meaningful work. A home that supports peace and creativity doesn't just make you calmer, it makes you feel like someone who lives with clarity and intent. Environment and identity are linked in a loop. Change one and the other evolves with it. Of course, not every aspect of your environment can be controlled. Life is messy, families are loud, circumstances shift. But you don't need a perfect environment. You need one that's been optimized wherever possible. Even small changes, one drawer organized, one wall cleared, one digital folder restructured, can create ripples in your system. It's not about overhaul, it's about momentum. And the more you build an environment that supports your best work and best self, the more naturally you'll find yourself stepping into that version of you. This is why some of the world's highest performers have the simplest setups. It's not about aesthetic, it's about function. It's about knowing what triggers flow and what interrupts it. It's about understanding that every decision, from what's on your desk to who you eat lunch with, is either strengthening your system or slowing it down. You don't have to control everything, but you must curate intentionally. Your future is too important to leave it in the hands of a chaotic environment. In the next chapter, we'll take a closer look at one of the biggest distractions masquerading as progress: tools. From apps to systems to platforms, many people are overwhelmed not by lack of technology, but by too much of it. We'll unpack why tools don't matter until systems do, and how you can stop chasing the next best thing and start using what you already have to move forward faster. Chapter 11. Tools don't matter until systems do. In an age of endless options, tools have become a distraction disguised as progress. Every week there's a new app, a new platform, a new productivity system promising to change your life. People spend hours testing features, customizing dashboards, and downloading templates, convinced they're being productive. But most of this effort is a well-disguised form of procrastination. They're not building their future. They're just reorganizing their indecision. The truth is simple and often uncomfortable. Tools don't matter until systems do. Without a clear structure, a repeatable process, and a defined purpose, no tool will save you from disorganization or inconsistency. A tool is just an amplifier. It will speed up whatever system you already have in place. If your system is unclear or broken, the tool will amplify the chaos. If your system is well designed, the tool will enhance it. This is why some people thrive using a simple notebook, while others struggle, despite using the most advanced software available. It's not the sophistication of the tool, it's the clarity of the system behind it. People confuse movement with progress, thinking that switching tools or learning new platforms will fix their problems. But switching tools is like changing pens when you haven't decided what to write. The core of any effective system is not the tool, but the process. It's how you decide what matters, how you schedule your time, how you execute and review your work. These elements don't require a specific app. They require discipline, reflection, and intentional design. Once these are in place, the right tool becomes obvious. It fits naturally because it's supporting something that already works. Until then, adding tools is like building faster trains without laying track. You'll move quickly, but you won't go anywhere meaningful. Many people delay important work because they believe they're not ready. They think they need to find the perfect tool first. The perfect planner, the perfect calendar system, the perfect project management software. But readiness doesn't come from gear, it comes from clarity. You don't need the best tool. You need a tool you'll actually use. A simple spreadsheet used daily is more powerful than a complicated platform used inconsistently. Consistency will always outperform complexity. A tool is only valuable when it serves a repeatable behavior that aligns with your system. This mindset shift frees you from the pressure to be constantly optimizing your tools. You stop chasing new apps and start refining your process. You begin asking better questions. What am I trying to accomplish? What system do I need to get there? How can I simplify my workflow so that success becomes easier to repeat? These are the questions that move you forward. Tools are there to serve these answers, not replace them. When selecting a tool, simplicity should be your guide. Choose tools that are easy to learn, flexible enough to adapt, and frictionless enough to use consistently. Avoid tools that require constant tweaking, steep learning curves, or unnecessary complexity. Your tools should reduce cognitive load, not increase it. They should help you think less about the process and more about the work itself. The more you can automate or streamline, the more energy you preserve for deep focus and creative effort. It's also important to separate tools by function. Don't try to make one tool do everything. Have a clear division between where you store information, where you track tasks, where you plan your calendar, and where you communicate. When each tool serves a distinct role in your system, your workflow becomes cleaner and your mind more focused. Confusion often arises when tools overlap or are used inconsistently. Establish clear roles and rules, and your system will begin to operate smoothly. Tools should also match your environment and identity. If you work best with tactile experiences, use analog tools like notebooks, whiteboards, or index cards. If you thrive in digital ecosystems, use apps that sync across your devices and integrate with your routines. Don't use tools that require you to become someone you're not. Your system should reflect your natural tendencies while helping you evolve in the direction you want to grow. It should meet you where you are and guide you forward, not frustrate you into abandoning progress. There's also the danger of tool addiction. The belief that one more download, one more optimization, one more customization will finally make everything click. But perfection is a trap. The pursuit of the perfect tool is often a way to delay the discomfort of execution. It's easier to tweak an interface than it is to write the proposal, make the call, or commit to a routine. At some point, you have to put the tools down and do the work. That's where momentum lives, not in the setup, but in the follow-through. The best builders in any field keep their tool sets simple. They choose a few core platforms and master them. They don't waste time reinventing systems that already work. They understand that effectiveness comes not from having more tools, but from using fewer tools more effectively. Their energy goes into refining systems, not chasing novelty. That discipline creates consistency, and consistency compounds into trust, impact, and freedom. Ultimately, tools are there to extend your system, not define it. They are servants, not saviors. They can't make you consistent, they can't give you clarity, they can't build habits, protect your time, or align your values. Only you can do that. Once you do, the tools become easy to select and even easier to replace if needed. Your system becomes the anchor. The tool is just the extension. If your system is built on clear values, repeatable habits, defined outcomes, and structured time, then almost any tool will work, And if your system is unclear, no tool will save it. That's the real takeaway. Before you buy, upgrade, or install anything new, make sure your system is worth scaling, because all a tool will ever do is multiply what's already there. In the next chapter, we'll explore a different way of thinking about growth, one that moves beyond the obsession with giant leaps and focuses instead on the quiet power of layers. You'll learn why building in layers creates durability, how it keeps your system sustainable, and why long-term results come from depth, not just speed. Chapter 12. Think in layers, not leaps. In a world obsessed with overnight success, big launches, and dramatic transformations, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that progress must be measured in leaps. We've been conditioned to look for massive change, bold moves, and visible milestones that prove we're growing. But the truth is that most lasting change happens quietly. It builds in layers, not leaps. And the systems that endure, the ones that actually support abundance, are almost always the ones built patiently, brick by brick, day by day. Leaps are exciting, they grab attention, they make for great stories, but they are also risky, unstable, and unsustainable without the layers that support them. The person who suddenly transforms their life, loses the weight, makes the money, or hits the milestone, usually did a lot of invisible work before that leap ever showed up. What looks like a breakthrough to the outside world is often the result of deeply layered structure beneath the surface. Habits formed, identity shaped, priorities clarified, distractions removed. When you think in layers, you begin to appreciate progress in its truest form. You stop chasing dramatic outcomes and start asking better questions. What am I reinforcing today? What is this layer adding to the system I'm building? How will this habit support the next phase of growth? It shifts the focus from intensity to consistency. You begin to see your time as an investment, your routines as infrastructure, and your habits as scaffolding. Nothing is wasted. Every small effort becomes a contribution to the larger architecture. Thinking in layers also protects you from the burnout that comes from sprinting toward results. It gives you permission to grow in a way that honors your energy and respects your season of life. Not every chapter demands peak performance. Some chapters are about laying foundations, deepening roots, recovering strength, or refining direction. When you think in leaps, you expect every day to be revolutionary. When you think in layers, you understand that greatness is built in quiet, disciplined steps. One page written, one habit kept, 1 hour of focus. Layered enough times, these actions build something unshakable. This mindset requires trust. Trust in the process. Trust in the structure. Trust that what you're building matters, even if it isn't visible yet. The challenge is that layered progress doesn't always feel exciting. It feels ordinary. You show up, do the work, and move forward incrementally. There are no fireworks, no sudden applause. And yet, these are the moments where the future is actually being built. Because when the leap does come, when the opportunity appears, the skill is needed, the door opens, you're ready. You've already built the system that can hold it. Thinking in layers also creates adaptability. When you build in leaps, everything is tied to one big outcome. If that outcome fails, everything collapses. But if you've built in layers, one setback doesn't destroy your momentum. Your identity is stable, your routines are intact, you can pivot, adjust, and keep building. The structure holds because it's not dependent on a single event. It's reinforced across time. That's how you build resilience, by layering systems that support you even when motivation is low or circumstances shift. The people who live in consistent abundance are rarely the loudest. They don't need to advertise their progress because they are building something real, and real doesn't need to shout. They are calm, focused, intentional. They know where they are in the process, they know which layer they're working on, and they don't confuse motion for meaning. Their systems evolve slowly but deliberately. They aren't chasing excitement, they're creating stability, and from that stability comes power. To begin thinking in layers, start by identifying which parts of your system need strengthening. Are your mornings chaotic? Build a morning layer. Is your focus fragmented? Build an environment layer. Is your creative energy scattered? Build a time block layer. Choose one area and ask, what single shift can I make here that, when repeated, will create long-term benefit? Then start reinforcing that shift until it becomes part of the structure. Don't move on until that layer is strong. Then move to the next. You don't need to transform everything at once. In fact, you shouldn't. That's the leap mindset talking. System builders know that real change comes from sustained layers, not sudden overhauls. One change at a time, one structure at a time, one win at a time. Layered, integrated, sustainable. This approach also deepens your self-awareness. As you build layers, you begin to notice what truly works for you, not just what sounds good in theory. You become more honest about your patterns, your limits, your energy, and that honesty allows for better design. You stop copying systems from others and start crafting a life that's uniquely yours. This is where alignment starts to become visible. The structure reflects the person, the layers match the mission. And the beauty of layers is that they compound. A small improvement today doesn't just help today, it helps tomorrow and the next day and the next. You save time, you reduce friction, you increase capacity. You may not see the full result immediately, but the long-term trajectory shifts. What was once hard becomes normal, what was once distant becomes expected. Layered effort becomes identity. Over time, your layered system becomes a quiet engine. It doesn't rely on constant maintenance. It doesn't fall apart under stress. It adapts, supports, and grows with you. And when challenges come, as they always do, you don't panic. You simply fall back on the layers you've built. You reset, realign, and keep going. That's the difference between a fragile pursuit and a sustainable structure. Leaps are vulnerable. Layers are durable. Thinking in layers also helps you enjoy the journey. You no longer need to postpone joy until the leap happens. You find meaning in the process itself. Each layer becomes a win, a milestone, a form of progress worth honoring. This mindset changes your relationship with time. You stop rushing, you start building, and you realize that the life you want isn't waiting for you after the leap. It's being created now in these ordinary, layered actions. In the next chapter, we'll explore how these layers must come together before scaling is even considered. Because too often, people try to scale without structure. They try to grow without systems. And when that happens, the very success they chase becomes the reason they break. System builders know better. They systemize before they scale. Chapter 13. Systemize before you scale. Growth is seductive. The idea of reaching more people, earning more money, expanding your influence, or multiplying your results is one of the most powerful drivers of action. But growth without structure is dangerous. It may feel exciting at first, but it quickly becomes overwhelming. What begins as opportunity turns into chaos. What was once manageable starts to collapse under its own weight. The reason is simple: scaling anything before it's been systemized is a recipe for failure. You cannot sustainably grow what you haven't made repeatable, predictable, and structurally sound. In the rush to expand, people often skip this foundational step. They take on more clients, launch more projects, say yes to more commitments, all without taking the time to refine the core processes that make the work sustainable. As a result, they end up buried in stress, constantly putting out fires and trying to maintain a fragile structure that was never designed to support that level of output. The issue isn't that they grew too fast, it's that they scaled too soon. They tried to build higher without reinforcing the base. Systemizing means creating a foundation that runs without constant improvisation. It means defining your workflows, standardizing your operations, automating where possible, and removing unnecessary complexity. When you systemize properly, growth becomes a natural extension of the structure. You no longer have to increase your effort to increase your output. You can scale with clarity, knowing your system will hold under pressure. But systemizing requires discipline. It means pausing growth long enough to build the structure that will support it. That pause often feels counterintuitive, but it's necessary. What feels like a delay is actually an investment in resilience. When you systemize, you create repeatability. Repeatability means your results are not dependent on your mood, your energy level, or your memory. They are the product of a process that works. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. You follow a rhythm. You trust the process. You spend less time managing chaos and more time improving outcomes. This not only increases efficiency, but also creates space for better decisions and higher quality work. Systemizing also reveals weaknesses. When you begin to document and structure your workflow, you'll quickly see where friction exists, where things break down, and where you're relying too much on guesswork. These insights allow you to refine, delegate, or eliminate what doesn't serve the bigger vision. It's like tuning an instrument before a performance. You want everything in harmony before you amplify the sound. Scaling without that tune-up means magnifying every flaw. The stakes are too high to wing it. One of the most valuable aspects of a systemized structure is that it allows other people to step in. If your business or personal routines only work when you're managing every detail, they are not scalable. Systemizing means creating documentation, templates, and guidelines that allow others to contribute without confusion. It means building a structure that doesn't depend entirely on you. This is how you buy back time. This is how you multiply your impact. Not by doing more, but by designing systems that can run without constant supervision. This principle applies even in personal life. If your fitness routine, financial habits, or daily planning relies solely on you remembering and deciding in the moment, they are fragile. Systemizing your personal routines, batching decisions, automating bills, preparing meals, planning weekly schedules, frees up mental bandwidth. It gives you more space to focus on what matters. It gives you energy to grow without sacrificing stability. Systemizing before scaling is not just about protecting yourself from burnout. It's about building something that lasts. Many people achieve a spike in success but can't sustain it. The excitement wears off, the pace becomes unsustainable, and without systems to support the workload, they crash. They confuse momentum with structure. But momentum without structure is just speed heading toward exhaustion. Lasting success requires a machine that runs smoothly, regardless of how motivated you feel. There is also a psychological benefit to systemizing. When you know your life or business is supported by structure, you feel more confident taking bold steps. You're not worried that one wrong move will unravel everything. You trust your system. That trust leads to clearer thinking, more consistent execution, and a calmer internal state. Instead of scrambling to keep up with growth, you can respond to it with focus and intention. That is the kind of energy that builds legacy, not just income. The resistance to systemizing often comes from the belief that structure will limit creativity or spontaneity. But in reality, structure protects creativity. It creates the space in which innovation can thrive. When the basics are automated or streamlined, your mind is free to explore new ideas, take calculated risks, and operate from a higher level of thinking. Without that structure, you're constantly reacting, putting out fires, and using your energy to maintain the status quo rather than expanding it. To systemize effectively, begin by identifying what you do most often. These are the areas that demand a reliable process. Look at your weekly actions. What tasks repeat? What decisions are you making over and over? Where do delays, confusion, or overwhelm typically show up? Start documenting your approach. Create templates. Batch similar tasks. Use tools not to complicate things, but to simplify. This is not busy work. This is construction. You are building the infrastructure that your future success will rely on. It's also important to recognize that systemizing is never finished. It evolves as you grow. New challenges will reveal new needs. That's why building systems is a mindset, not a project. You're always looking for ways to refine, simplify, and improve. But the better your initial foundation, the easier it becomes to adapt without starting from scratch. And the more you embrace systems, the less you rely on willpower or memory to keep things running. Your system becomes your second brain. It remembers, guides, and supports you. Scaling is a natural desire. It's exciting to dream bigger, reach further, and do more. But real freedom comes not from rapid growth, but from reliable growth. Growth that is supported, sustainable, and sane. Growth that doesn't cost you your health, your peace, or your purpose. When your systems are ready, scaling becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Until then, focus on the work of preparation, build the structure, refine the engine, lay the tracks, because once you're ready to scale, you want to know that your system can carry the weight of your ambition. In the next chapter, we'll shift from building and expanding to observing and adjusting, because no matter how strong your system is, it needs regular feedback. You'll learn how to set up feedback loops, use data wisely, and course correct without ego. Because systems aren't fixed. They're living frameworks, and the most powerful ones evolve as you do. Chapter 14, Feedback Loops and Course Correction. Every system, no matter how carefully designed, needs feedback. Without it, you're operating blind, assuming progress where there may be none or missing small failures that will eventually grow into bigger ones. Feedback loops are not a luxury reserved for corporations or elite performers. They are essential for anyone serious about building a life that evolves. Without a system for measuring and adjusting, even the most thoughtful plans become rigid. They stagnate, they lose relevance, and ultimately they fail. Feedback isn't a judgment, it's information. It's the mirror that reflects reality, the compass that keeps your trajectory aligned. Many people avoid feedback because it feels personal. They think it's a statement about their worth or competence. But feedback, when viewed through the lens of systems thinking, is never about your identity. It's about your process. It shows you what is working, what's not, and where small shifts can lead to much better results. Systems thrive on feedback. It's how they adapt. It's how they self-correct. The more honest and consistent the feedback, the stronger and more flexible your system becomes. A feedback loop is simple in concept. You take action, you observe the result, you compare the result to the desired outcome, you make adjustments, then you take action again. This cycle, repeated continuously, allows your system to evolve in real time. Without it, you end up guessing. You rely on memory, assumptions, or feelings, none of which are reliable over time, and without feedback, you risk continuing down the wrong path simply because it's familiar. There are two types of feedback every system needs, internal and external. Internal feedback comes from within. It's how you feel, what you observe, the energy you bring, and the resistance you face. It's noticing that a routine is draining instead of energizing. It's realizing that a habit you once loved no longer fits the season you're in. Internal feedback is subtle, often quiet, and easy to ignore if you're not paying attention. But ignoring it leads to misalignment. When you listen to it, you refine, you pivot, you grow in the direction of truth. External feedback comes from outside sources: data, people, results, outcomes. It's what your calendar reveals about how you actually use your time. It's the bank statement that reflects how aligned your spending is with your values. It's the client who gives you honest feedback, the mentor who challenges your assumptions, the performance review that highlights a gap you didn't see. External feedback is less emotional and more measurable. It's objective information you can analyze and act upon. Both internal and external feedback are necessary. Together, they form a complete picture. One of the most effective ways to implement feedback loops in your system is through regular review. A weekly review is a simple but powerful tool. At the end of each week, sit down and ask yourself a few essential questions. What worked well this week? What didn't? Where did I lose focus or momentum? What can I adjust for next week? These questions are not meant to criticize but to clarify. They turn vague feelings into actionable insights. They make reflection a habit instead of a crisis response. Monthly and quarterly reviews take this even further. They allow you to zoom out, to see patterns, to track progress toward longer-term goals. Without these checkpoints, it's easy to get lost in the busyness of the day-to-day and lose sight of the bigger picture. Course correction only happens when you pause long enough to check the map. These reviews are your checkpoints. They prevent drift. They help you make sure that your actions are still aligned with your values, your vision, and your season. The most important part of a feedback loop is the willingness to respond. Feedback without adjustment is just data. Action is what makes it powerful. If your morning routine no longer energizes you, change it. If your financial plan isn't producing the savings you expected, revise it. If your creative process is becoming a source of stress rather than expression, simplify it. There is no shame in adjusting your system. In fact, refusal to adjust is often the root of long-term stagnation. Pride resists feedback. Growth embraces it. Ego is the enemy of evolution. When your identity is too tightly wrapped around being right, you miss opportunities to become better. Feedback threatens ego because it exposes weakness, but it strengthens systems because it highlights truth. The systems builder sees feedback as fuel. Every insight, every data point, every uncomfortable conversation is a gift. It reveals where improvement lives, and when you begin to operate from this place, nothing becomes wasted. Mistakes become lessons. Delays become design improvements. Criticism becomes calibration. It's also important to be intentional about your feedback sources. Not all feedback is equal. The internet is full of opinions. Social media is full of noise. Just because someone has a voice doesn't mean they have valuable insight. Select feedback from people who understand your vision, who want to see you grow, who have built systems of their own. Choose sources that challenge you with clarity, not just criticism. And listen closely to the patterns. One person's opinion can be ignored. Consistent signals, repeated across time, deserve your attention. Your environment can also be designed to create natural feedback loops. Visual cues, habit trackers, progress journals, and regular checkpoints are all tools to bring awareness to your system. If something is off, your environment should help you notice. If something is improving, your system should reflect that too. Build reminders into your week that nudge you to pause and review. Don't wait until things break to evaluate. Make feedback a normal part of how you operate. The long-term benefit of consistent feedback and course correction is that your system becomes self-sustaining. You don't need constant breakthroughs or resets. You don't need to start over every few months. Instead, your system evolves in small, intelligent ways. You make a tweak here, a shift there, and over time, those adjustments add up to major progress. It's the quiet power of iteration, building slowly, improving constantly, and never drifting too far from your true direction. Course correction doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means you're paying attention. It means you value your vision enough to adjust your path when needed. Systems that don't evolve die. They become rigid, outdated, and ineffective. But systems that embrace feedback remain alive. They stay relevant. They become trusted frameworks that support you through every season of life. In the next chapter, we'll explore the most personal system of all, the one that lives inside your mind. You'll learn how belief and self-talk silently shape every decision you make and every result you create. Because even the most perfectly structured system can be derailed by a broken internal narrative. And it's time to upgrade that too. Chapter 15. The System of Self-Belief. Behind every action you take, every goal you pursue, and every system you try to build is a silent force that either fuels or frustrates your progress, your self-belief. Long before a habit is formed or a task is completed, there is a thought. That thought carries a message about who you think you are, what you think you can handle, and what kind of life you believe you deserve. This internal narrative functions like an operating system. Most people run it unconsciously, unaware that the scripts looping through their mind are shaping their behavior, their decisions, and ultimately their future. Without a system of self-belief that supports growth, even the best-designed external systems will struggle to gain traction. Self-belief is not just about confidence, it's about identity. It's the deep-rooted sense of what kind of person you are and what you expect from yourself. It shows up in subtle ways: how you respond to failure, how you speak to yourself when things go wrong, how much responsibility you're willing to take for your own results. People who have strong external systems but weak internal belief structures tend to sabotage their own momentum. They hesitate when they need to move, quit when they need to persist, or accept average when excellence is within reach. The limit is not in their potential. It's in their perception. The reason many people fail to sustain change is because their systems are built on top of an old identity. They try to install new behaviors without updating the beliefs that drive those behaviors. They set goals without believing they're the kind of person who achieves those goals. They speak affirmations but cancel them out with doubt the moment something feels hard. And over time, the old identity reasserts itself, pulling them back into familiar patterns. No matter how advanced the system, if the story you're telling yourself contradicts it, the story wins. To create lasting change, you must build a system of self-belief that matches the structure of the life you're trying to create. This doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. It means deliberately shifting your inner dialogue to reflect the truth of your potential rather than the memory of your past. This is not about ego or delusion. It's about creating internal alignment. When your self-concept supports your goals, your behavior becomes more consistent. Your decisions become clearer, and your systems become easier to follow. You stop fighting yourself and start building from a place of trust. The system of self-belief begins with awareness. Start paying attention to how you talk to yourself in moments of stress, failure, or uncertainty. What do you say when you miss a target, when you fall behind, when things don't go according to plan? Most people default to self-criticism or shame, thinking that harshness will drive discipline. But shame is not a sustainable fuel. It erodes identity. It makes success feel like a fluke and failure feel like confirmation. A powerful belief system, on the other hand, responds with curiosity and accountability. It asks what happened, what can be learned, and what needs to change next time. This mindset doesn't avoid responsibility. It just doesn't weaponize it. Building belief is not a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. Just as you brush your teeth or track your habits, you must reinforce your internal narrative. This doesn't require hours of journaling or meditation. It can be as simple as choosing better language. Catch yourself in negative self-talk and reframe it. Replace "I always screw this up" with "I'm learning how to do this better." Shift "I can't keep up" to "I'm adjusting my pace to match my priorities." These small changes, repeated consistently, reshape the inner script. And as the script changes, so does your behavior. Another powerful tool is evidence. Confidence grows from repetition. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for a new identity. Every time you follow through on your system, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, disciplined, and trustworthy. The more evidence you collect, the more natural those beliefs become. You don't have to convince yourself. You just need to show yourself. Results, even small ones, create proof. And proof builds belief. You also need to be mindful of comparison. Nothing erodes self-belief faster than measuring your progress against someone else's highlight reel. When you constantly look outward for validation, you disconnect from your own internal metrics. You start to chase someone else's definition of success, even if it doesn't align with your values or your season. The system of self-belief requires boundaries. You must protect your mental space from inputs that undermine your progress. Celebrate others without diminishing yourself. Use inspiration as fuel, not as a mirror. Environment plays a role too. The people you allow into your life either reinforce your self-belief or chip away at it. Spend enough time around cynics and you'll start to second-guess your ambitions. Spend time with builders and visionaries and you'll start to normalize growth. You don't need constant praise. You need proximity to people who expect more from you, who speak life into your process, and who reflect back the version of you that you're working to become. Your belief system will either be reinforced or challenged by the company you keep. Choose accordingly. It's also important to remember that belief does not mean certainty. You don't have to know how everything will work out. You just have to believe that you will figure it out. This kind of belief is not arrogance, it's resilience. It's the quiet confidence that even when the path is unclear, you trust yourself to stay the course, to adjust when needed, and to keep building. That belief, more than any hack or tactic, is what creates endurance. Systems alone are not enough. Belief is what keeps them running when motivation fades or results take time. The system of self-belief is a foundational layer. It's not visible on the surface, but everything else is built on top of it. If it's weak, cracks will show in every area of life: relationships, work, health, creativity. But when it's strong, it creates a kind of emotional gravity. You carry yourself differently. You approach problems with calm. You persist longer, adapt faster, and recover more quickly. That's what makes belief so powerful. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes how you experience everything you do. In the next chapter, we'll shift from internal belief to external support. Specifically, how to build systems of delegation that free your time, expand your capacity, and allow your vision to grow beyond what you can manage alone. Because real freedom doesn't come from doing everything yourself. It comes from building systems others can help run. Chapter 16. Delegation is a system, not a shortcut. Most people think of delegation as a last resort, something you do when you're overwhelmed or too busy to manage everything yourself. They treat it like a relief valve instead of a core system, outsourcing tasks when things start to break down instead of designing support from the start. This mindset limits growth. True delegation isn't a desperate handoff or a lazy shortcut. It's a strategic structure. It's a design choice. Delegation, when done well, isn't about getting rid of work. It's about multiplying capacity and building leverage into your system. Trying to do everything yourself feels noble at first. It creates a sense of control, a kind of quiet pride in being capable, independent, and involved in every detail. But over time, that control turns into a bottleneck. You become the reason things slow down. You become the system, and the system becomes unsustainable. Energy is drained not from the work itself, but from the weight of having to manage it all. You start to confuse busyness with importance. You wear exhaustion like a badge, forgetting that freedom was the reason you started building systems in the first place. The shift happens when you stop thinking of delegation as giving things away and start thinking of it as building a machine that can run without you. Delegation is not the removal of responsibility. It's the redistribution of responsibility in a way that makes your vision more scalable. When you delegate with clarity and intention, you're not just getting help. You're creating a structure where others can contribute meaningfully to a shared goal. You're not just offloading tasks. You're building trust, developing people, and reinforcing your core systems. The key to effective delegation is systems. Without systems, delegation creates chaos. You can't hand off confusion and expect clarity in return. You can't assign responsibility without expectations, timelines, or context, and hope for excellence. Delegation starts by documenting what you do, why you do it, and how it gets done. This includes everything from daily operations to occasional tasks that still play a critical role in maintaining momentum. Systems create repeatability. Repeatability creates confidence. Confidence allows you to let go. Letting go is the most difficult part. People resist delegation because it feels like a loss of control. They fear that no one else will care as much, execute as precisely, or understand the nuances. And that might be true at first. But perfection isn't the goal. Progress is. You're not delegating because someone else can do it exactly like you. You're delegating because the task doesn't require your unique focus or energy. Your attention should be directed toward decisions, relationships, creativity, and strategy, the things only you can do. Everything else can and should be systemized and shared. Delegation also requires clear communication. If your instructions are vague, incomplete, or rushed, don't expect consistent results. Clarity is kindness. When you delegate, give context, expectations, and the reason the task matters. Provide resources, timelines, and the outcomes you expect, not just the steps, but the result. When someone understands not only what to do, but why it matters, they take more ownership. They care more. They become invested in the outcome. That's when delegation stops feeling like a transaction and becomes a collaboration. You also need to build feedback into your delegation system. It's not enough to assign a task and disappear. Check in without hovering. Offer support without micromanaging. Let people grow into their roles. Allow space for mistakes, learning, and improvement. The goal is not to hand off a task once. It's to create a loop where work is completed constructively, reviewed constructively, and improved over time. This builds trust in both directions. You trust them to deliver, they trust you to support. Delegation isn't limited to teams or businesses. It applies in every area of life. Household routines can be systemized and shared. Errands can be automated or handed off. Creative work can be supported by virtual assistants, editors, or collaborators. Delegation is about building a support system that allows you to stay focused on your zone of genius. If you spend all your time in maintenance mode, you never create space for growth. But when you delegate effectively, you protect your highest value work. One of the most overlooked benefits of delegation is emotional bandwidth. When you try to manage every detail yourself, your mind becomes crowded. You're always thinking about what needs to be done, what's overdue, and what's falling through the cracks. Delegation frees up that mental space. It creates room to think, to plan, to rest, and to lead. It turns overwhelm into order. It turns chaos into clarity. That clarity then flows back into your work, your relationships, and your energy. To begin building a delegation system, start with a simple inventory. List everything you currently manage, from the smallest task to the biggest responsibility. Then identify what absolutely requires your personal attention and what doesn't. Be honest. Many tasks feel important simply because you're used to doing them. Ask yourself if the task requires your unique skills, insights, or decisions. If not, it belongs in the delegation pipeline. Next, identify potential delegation channels. This could include team members, contractors, service providers, automation tools, or collaborative platforms. Choose based on simplicity and reliability. You don't need the most advanced solution. You need the one that fits your current system and removes friction. Begin handing off low-risk, high-frequency tasks first. As trust builds and systems improve, expand gradually. Document everything. Make each task easier to hand off again later. You're not just outsourcing work, you're building an asset that runs without you. Keep in mind that delegation is a skill. It requires practice. You won't get it perfect the first time, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. You learn how to communicate better, how to set expectations more clearly, how to build systems that support other people's success. Over time, delegation stops being something you avoid and starts being something you rely on. It becomes a pillar of your system, and with each task you let go of, you reclaim time and energy to direct toward higher-level decisions. What you're really building through delegation is a life that expands beyond your own capacity. You're creating leverage, not by working harder, but by designing a system that includes other people's strengths. You're saying yes to growth without saying yes to exhaustion. That is the core of abundance. It's not doing everything, it's doing the right things, supported by the right people, through systems that make the process sustainable. In the next chapter, we'll talk about what to do when your system fails, because even the best designed structures will eventually break under pressure, complexity, or change. And how you respond in those moments will determine whether your system was a temporary solution or a foundation for something better. Chapter 17. When the system breaks, upgrade it. Every system, no matter how carefully designed, eventually encounters friction. Sometimes it happens slowly, a slight drop in efficiency or a creeping sense of fatigue. Other times it's dramatic, a missed opportunity, a crisis, or a total collapse. What matters most in those moments isn't whether your system failed, it's how you respond. Because systems are not meant to be permanent, they're meant to evolve. When a system breaks, it's not a sign that you failed. It's a signal that something needs to change. If you treat breakdowns as the end, you miss the opportunity to upgrade. But if you treat them as part of the process, you find your way to something stronger, leaner, and more aligned. The most common mistake people make when a system fails is blaming themselves instead of examining the structure. They internalize the breakdown as personal weakness. They think they just weren't disciplined enough, motivated enough, focused enough. But the truth is that most failure is structural, not personal. The system didn't support the pressure, the pace, or the season. The environment shifted. The demands grew, the inputs changed, the routine that once worked no longer fits. This is not weakness, it's feedback. And if you listen carefully, you'll find your next move. Growth is what breaks systems. As you evolve, your life becomes more complex, your responsibilities shift, your goals become bigger and more nuanced. Systems that once felt powerful start to feel constraining. That's not a problem, that's progress. But if you cling to a system past its usefulness, you turn a strength into a liability. You find yourself forcing outdated routines, holding on to workflows that no longer serve you, or trying to make a static structure fit a dynamic life. Systems must be living frameworks, not monuments to the past. When a system begins to break, the first step is not to panic or power through. It's to pause and assess. Look at what's no longer working. Be honest. Where is the friction showing up? What feels heavy, inefficient, or misaligned? Where are you spending energy just to maintain basic function? Often it's not the whole system that needs to go. It's one layer, one habit, one process that needs refining. You don't need to start from scratch. You need to start from truth. Upgrading a system means adjusting the inputs, modifying the structure, and sometimes rewriting the rules. Maybe the time block that once gave you focus now clashes with a new energy pattern. Maybe the delegation structure needs tightening. Maybe your calendar no longer reflects your current values. Maybe the morning routine that once gave you clarity now feels like an obligation. Systems are not sacred. Their purpose is to serve you, not imprison you. When they stop serving you, they must be updated. One of the most powerful questions you can ask during a breakdown is, what is this trying to teach me? Systems don't break randomly. They break under the weight of change, and that change is trying to show you something about how you've grown, what you've outgrown, or what you've been avoiding. Maybe you need to let go of control. Maybe you need to ask for help. Maybe you've been clinging to a level of productivity that no longer supports your well-being. When you listen to what the system is trying to reveal, the path forward becomes clearer. It's also important to separate emotional reaction from structural analysis. Frustration, fatigue, and confusion are valid feelings, but they aren't reliable tools for redesign. Use them as signals, not strategies. Step back, zoom out, and examine the system objectively. If someone else were running this system, what would you tell them to fix? What part is overcomplicated? What needs to be automated, delegated, or eliminated entirely? Often, the upgrade is not in doing more, it's in simplifying, clarifying, and streamlining. The people who build resilient systems are not those who avoid failure. They're the ones who expect it. They build with flexibility. They create space for review and revision. They don't confuse structure with rigidity. Their systems are like living organisms, capable of adapting, healing, and growing stronger over time. That adaptability is the real power. It's what separates a short-term streak from a long-term system. When you expect to upgrade, failure becomes part of the strategy. Breakdowns are also a test of identity. They reveal how committed you are to the process. If you quit the moment something no longer works, you were chasing convenience, not building for the long term. But if you lean in, ask better questions, and commit to improvement, you create momentum even in the face of setbacks. You prove to yourself that your progress is not tied to perfection. It's tied to persistence and design. In times of breakdown, don't isolate. Systems often fail quietly until they don't. Talk to someone, share what's happening, let others reflect your blind spots. Often someone outside your system can see where it's fraying before you can. Their perspective can help you spot unnecessary complexity or offer solutions that hadn't occurred to you. You don't have to rebuild alone. The best systems often come from collaboration, iteration, and shared insight. Upgrades are not just fixes. They're opportunities to integrate everything you've learned. When you rebuild, bring your new wisdom into the process. Maybe now you understand your energy cycles better. Maybe you've developed new tools, skills, or boundaries. Maybe you've let go of perfectionism and are ready to create something more sustainable. Use that growth to design a system that fits who you are now, not who you were when you first built it. And remember, just because something worked well for a season doesn't mean it was meant to last forever. Life moves in rhythms. Systems should too. You will have to adjust again and again as your goals evolve, your priorities shift, and your vision deepens. That is not failure. That is the work. That is the process of living intentionally, of building with awareness, of refusing to let your past structure dictate your future potential. When the system breaks, you have two options. You can cling harder to what no longer works and hope it magically starts working again, or you can rise, redesign, and build something better. The second option always leads to growth. It may be uncomfortable, but it creates capacity, it creates clarity, and it deepens your confidence in your ability to navigate complexity. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to carry that confidence forward into the design of your future, not as a fixed destination, but as an evolving system itself. Because your future isn't waiting to be found, it's waiting to be built. And the structures you build now will either limit you or launch you into what's next. Chapter 18. Your future is a system in progress. The future is not a mystery to be solved. It is a system to be shaped. The biggest illusion that keeps people stuck is the idea that the future is something that happens to them, a force outside their control, determined by luck, timing, or external validation. But the truth is far more empowering. Your future is not waiting for permission. It's waiting for a structure. It's not found by chance. It's formed by the systems you build today, the habits you maintain, and the values. The future doesn't appear one day as a gift. It emerges as a pattern, a byproduct of your current design. When you understand this, you stop living reactively. You stop waiting for the right moment, the right motivation, or the perfect opportunity. You begin to realize that the most reliable way to predict your future is to examine your present systems. If they're chaotic, inconsistent, or misaligned, your future will reflect that. If they're intentional, repeatable, and rooted in clarity, your future becomes something you can influence and refine. The system is always speaking. It's telling you what you're building, whether or not you're aware of it. A future built by default is shaped by distractions, urgency, and other people's expectations. It reflects whatever noise was loudest, not whatever truth was deepest. But a future built by design follows a different path. It's crafted from within, shaped deliberately over time, and refined with each decision. The beauty of a future built through systems is that it doesn't rely on willpower or luck. It relies on alignment. You create structure around what you value most and trust that those structures will carry you forward. This approach requires letting go of the myth of sudden transformation. Change doesn't happen in a flash. It happens gradually through consistent structure. People talk about breakthroughs, but breakthroughs are usually the result of 100 small actions layered over time. You don't need to see the entire future to begin. You just need to create a system that supports the next step, and then another, and then another. Over time, the result is something that looks like momentum, but feels like clarity. The most powerful futures are not built with perfect vision. They're built with adaptable systems. Because your goals will evolve, your values will deepen, your season of life will change, and your system must be able to grow with you. Rigidity breaks under pressure, but flexible systems adapt. They adjust to your energy, your environment, your capacity. They don't lock you into a version of success that no longer fits. They hold space for evolution. A system that supports your future includes multiple dimensions. It contains structure for your time, yes, but also for your learning, your creativity, your relationships, your health. Each part of your life either feeds or drains the others. There is no such thing as a future that thrives in one domain while everything else is falling apart. If your success costs you your peace, your energy, or your relationships, it's not success. It's dysfunction. The goal is not to win in one area. The goal is to design systems that create wholeness across all of them. This doesn't mean everything has to be perfect or balanced at all times. Balance is dynamic, not static. Some seasons will require more from your work, others from your family, your health, your rest. The point is not to be equal, it's to be intentional, to know why you're choosing what you're choosing, and to make sure your systems are supporting that choice, not undermining it. That's how the future gets built, not through fantasy, but through structure that reflects your evolving priorities. The system you build for your future also includes how you process setbacks. There will be delays, mistakes, and wrong turns. But if your system includes reflection, adjustment, and learning, those setbacks become part of your momentum. You don't need a perfect path. You need a path that keeps you moving. When you treat your future like a system in progress, you stop needing everything to go right the first time. You start trusting yourself to build forward no matter what happens. You also start thinking in terms of systems of influence. The people you surround yourself with, the inputs you allow, the conversations you engage in, all of these shape your future. If your system includes consistent exposure to growth, challenge, and support, you accelerate without forcing it. You start seeing opportunities you would have missed in a different environment. You start making decisions from a place of vision, not survival, and slowly, the future you once hoped for begins to feel like your new normal. Vision alone isn't enough. Everyone has dreams, ambitions, things they want, but not everyone builds systems to support those desires. Wanting isn't building. Hoping isn't planning. You must be willing to translate your vision into process. What daily habits reinforce the future you're working toward? What boundaries protect your focus? What structures prevent decision fatigue and emotional burnout? Without those layers, your future stays stuck in your imagination. The process of future building also includes learning how to live with uncertainty. There are no guarantees. You can't control outcomes, only actions. But a system gives you something better than certainty. It gives you direction. It helps you stay in motion even when the path is unclear. It helps you keep showing up when the external rewards haven't arrived yet. It gives you a reason to stay grounded because the work itself is meaningful. That's the difference between chasing and building. Chasing burns out. Building endures. Eventually, your system becomes a form of self-trust. You stop questioning whether you're doing enough, whether you're on the right path, whether you're falling behind. You start trusting the process. Because the process is real. You see it, you live it. You know that the future is not something separate from the present, it is embedded in it. Every decision you make is a vote for the kind of life you're designing. Every layer you build strengthens the structure. Every system you refine becomes a bridge to what's next. This is the essence of abundance. It's not a jackpot you stumble upon. It's a system you build. One that turns your values into behavior, your behavior into results, and your results into a future that reflects what matters most. It's not something you find, it's something you create. One structure at a time. In the next chapter, we'll explore what it means to trust the system fully, not just in building it, but in letting it run. Because the final stage of mastery is not holding tighter, it's knowing when to step back and let the system deliver what it was designed to deliver. Chapter 19. Build the system, then step back. The final test of a system is whether it can run without constant supervision. Most people build with tension, keeping their hands on every lever and their eyes on every outcome, afraid that if they look away, everything will fall apart. But control is not the goal of building systems. Freedom is. You don't build a system so you can micromanage it. You build it so you can trust it. At some point, the discipline required isn't in building harder, it's in stepping back. Letting go does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means recognizing that a system, once well-designed, should be able to operate with minimal friction. You put in the work up front. You clarify the structure, refine the flow, create the automation, delegate the tasks, and build the feedback loops. Then you test, revise, and adjust. And once those elements are in place, you allow the system to do what it was designed to do, sustain momentum, deliver results, and hold your direction while you focus on higher-level thinking. Many people get stuck between creation and control. They build something strong, but they don't trust it, so they hover. They overthink. They tweak endlessly. They interrupt the flow because they're addicted to effort. They've been taught that working hard is proof of value, so when the system starts to work without them, they panic. They confuse peace with laziness. They confuse trust with carelessness. But the truth is that the ultimate test of a builder is their ability to walk away from the machine and know that it will keep running. Stepping back doesn't mean disengaging. It means shifting your role. You become a steward, not a technician. You move from doing to directing, from reacting to observing. You keep your hand on the pulse, but you no longer feel the need to push every button. You respond when needed, you adjust when appropriate, but your presence is not required for the system to function. This is what allows you to scale, to grow, to rest, and to innovate. Because you're no longer trapped inside your own creation, you're free to explore what's next. When you step back, you create space for creativity, for recovery, for insight. Constant action can dull your vision. Always being inside the system makes it harder to see what needs to be improved. But stepping back gives you perspective. You start to notice patterns, weak points, and new opportunities. You gain clarity not by doing more, but by allowing the structure you've built to do its work. That space becomes a source of leverage, allowing you to operate with less effort and more impact. This is especially important if your system involves other people. Trust is contagious. When you refuse to step back, you signal to your team, your collaborators, or your family that you don't believe the system will work without you. That message creates anxiety and dependency. But when you give people space to operate, when you trust the structure you've all contributed to, you create autonomy. You show that the system isn't about you, it's about the mission. And when people believe in the system, they take ownership. They contribute more. They become part of something sustainable. Of course, stepping back requires self-awareness. You have to know when your involvement is helping and when it's hindering. You have to recognize the difference between leadership and control. Leadership creates clarity, then steps aside. Control creates tension and insists on micromanagement. It takes humility to accept that the system can succeed without your constant input. It takes courage to believe that your earlier work is enough. But that's the reward of building well, freedom earned through structure. There will always be the temptation to jump back in, especially when something small goes wrong, especially when the results aren't immediate. But resilience comes from restraint. Every system experiences minor hiccups. Not every one of them needs your reaction. Let the system absorb the bumps. Let the feedback loop do its job. Intervene only when necessary. Overreaction trains the system to depend on you. Restraint teaches the system to self-correct. That's what turns a smart structure into a self-sustaining one. This principle also applies to personal systems. If you've built habits, routines, or rhythms that serve your growth, don't sabotage them by second-guessing every move. Let the routine carry you. Let the process do its job. Don't interrupt your momentum because of impatience. If the system is aligned, consistent, and adaptable, the results will come, not always immediately, but predictably. Trust in that rhythm. Trust in what you've built. Stepping back also reinforces identity. It shows that you've moved from someone who chases progress to someone who creates it. It proves that your value is not in how much you hustle, but in how well you design. It marks the transition from operator to architect, from firefighter to system builder. It's one of the most powerful psychological shifts you can make, the realization that real strength lies in stability, not in strength. Still, stepping back doesn't mean stepping away forever. Systems require periodic review, they evolve with you, but that review should come from intention, not insecurity. Set regular times to assess, refine, and recalibrate. Weekly reviews, monthly reflections, quarterly adjustments. These checkpoints keep your system alive without pulling you back into daily maintenance. You're not walking away, you're leading from a higher altitude. This chapter, more than any other, is about surrender. Not the passive kind, but the strategic kind. It's about knowing when the work is done, and when more work will only interfere. It's about honoring your system by giving it space to perform. And it's about honoring yourself by allowing the freedom that your structure was designed to create. You didn't build the system so you could live inside it like a prisoner. You built it so you could step outside of it and still trust that it will deliver what you designed it to deliver. This is where peace lives, in the space between effort and trust, in the gap between doing and allowing, in the quiet confidence of a builder who no longer needs to prove anything, because the structure speaks for itself. In the final chapter, we'll talk about what it means to live as an infinite builder, someone who never stops growing, who sees systems not as boxes to live in, but as platforms to build from. Because this journey is not about achieving a static outcome, it's about living in a state of continuous creation, fueled by clarity, alignment, and systems that support you for a lifetime. Chapter 20. Live like a system builder. The goal was never just to build a system. It was to become the kind of person who builds them. Because systems don't only serve you, they shape you. The process of designing structure, aligning your habits, managing your energy, and living with clarity transforms how you think, work, and show up in the world. The system is not the end, it is the beginning. And once you understand how to build it, you are no longer a person waiting on life to happen. You become a system builder, someone who doesn't chase outcomes but creates the conditions in which outcomes emerge. Living like a system builder means seeing life through the lens of structure and sustainability. You stop seeking silver bullets. You stop reacting to every change in emotion or circumstance. You begin asking better questions. What system is creating this result? What structure is missing? What layer needs reinforcing? It's a mindset shift, one that changes everything from how you set goals to how you respond to setbacks. You understand that behind every consistent outcome lies a repeatable process. If you want new outcomes, you don't force them, you build a new process. This way of living removes the need for constant intensity. You stop burning yourself out trying to make dramatic changes. You become someone who trusts slow, consistent growth because you've seen it work. You've seen the compound effect of habits well kept, time used intentionally, energy protected through boundaries, and decisions made with clarity. You stop being impressed by sudden breakthroughs and start being committed to the daily architecture of a well-designed life. You build in layers, you scale with purpose, you evolve through reflection. It also means you stop outsourcing your power. You stop waiting for someone else to rescue you, to discover you, to validate your potential. System builders understand that their future is their responsibility. No one is coming to save them, and no one needs to. Because they have tools, they have clarity, they have structure, they have proof that effort aligned with process produces results. When something breaks, they pause, assess, adjust, and continue. Their power doesn't come from luck or timing. It comes from their ability to build, refine, and rebuild. Living like a system builder also changes your relationship with time. You stop rushing. You understand that urgency often leads to error, and that impatience can break what consistency would have built. You become more present in your work because you're no longer desperate for immediate validation. You trust the rhythm you've created. You show up, you execute, and you allow time to do its work. Ironically, this mindset often leads to faster results. Not because you push harder, but because you reduce friction and avoid detours. You also start designing systems in more areas of your life. At first, it may have been about productivity or health or finances. But over time, the system builder mindset seeps into everything. You start shaping how you rest, how you connect with others, how you learn, how you recover. You stop seeing areas of your life as disconnected. You start seeing them as integrated parts of a larger ecosystem, and you understand that harmony across that system creates peace, power, and progress. Living like a system builder means owning your identity. You're no longer trying to become someone else. You are creating a version of yourself that is fully aligned with your values, goals, and season of life. That identity becomes your compass. It informs your habits, your routines, your decisions. You stop asking, "What should I do today?" and start asking, "What would the builder in me choose right now?" That one shift reframes your entire relationship with action. You stop acting based on pressure and start acting based on principle. This way of life doesn't remove emotion, but it gives you something stronger than mood. It gives you rhythm. It gives you an anchor. When motivation is low, your system holds you. When doubt creeps in, your structure reminds you who you are. When things fall apart, you're not starting from scratch. You're making adjustments to something already strong. You begin to realize that mastery is not the absence of struggle. It's the ability to keep building through struggle without losing your vision. System builders are not perfectionists. They don't chase flawless execution. They chase clarity, alignment, and progress. They know that perfect systems don't exist, only evolving ones do. And they are not afraid to evolve. They are not afraid to ask new questions, try new tools, rebuild what no longer serves them. They are never too proud to update their process. Because they are not loyal to methods, they are loyal to outcomes that matter. And they know that loyalty to results means flexibility with structure. They also don't need to be the smartest or the most talented. They just need to be consistent. That's the quiet superpower of system builders. They don't rely on talent to carry them. They rely on the repeatability of good decisions made in advance. Their creativity flourishes because their time and energy are protected. Their health improves because their routines are sustainable. Their finances grow because their actions are intentional. Their relationships deepen because they've created space for presence. All of it flows from systemized choices. The life of a system builder is not flashy. It's not built on constant urgency or public applause. But it is solid, it is grounded, it is free, because it is not dependent on external validation or chaotic effort. It is built on the quiet discipline of design. A builder's life doesn't look dramatic from the outside, but over time it becomes extraordinary, because it's rare. Rare to see someone live in alignment, rare to see someone who doesn't just set goals, but creates environments where those goals become inevitable. And perhaps most importantly, a system builder never stops building. There's always another layer, another refinement, another version of the future to explore. This is a lifelong practice, not a temporary fix. You don't build one system and then rest forever. You keep asking what's next. You keep building, not because you are incomplete, but because you are committed. You are committed to designing a life that supports your values, reflects your growth, and unlocks your potential. That's the invitation, to live not as someone chasing results, but as someone who creates them. To stop reacting to life and start shaping it. To live with structure on purpose without apology. To stop proving and start building. To stop waiting and start designing. Because your future is not a mystery, it is a system, and the blueprint is in your hand.